Welcome to Protea Weekly. My name is Zane Stevens. I'm the founder of Protea Financial. And today we are fortunate enough to be live with Ashley Leonard of InnoVint. Welcome to the show, Ashley.
Thank you, Zane. Happy to be here.
Yeah. So InnoVint is your winery operating system, a user-friendly software built with winemaking in mind. InnoVint helps wineries of all sizes grow, make and sell wine more efficiently. That's a big, broad statement.
It is. Yes, we do a lot. But the wine industry and making wine is quite complex. So we try and cover as much as we can to add value there.
Now, as a user of InnoVent, I sort of go tick what they say is what they do. And, as we sort of chatted about it before we went live, that's not necessarily the case with a lot of technology out there. And it's one of the things that sort of attracted me to InnoVent, and then was very fortunate enough to be introduced to you a couple of months ago. And obviously being able to get even more in depth within the software, attend some training, start using it with our clients. And, as an accountant and a very, at times condescending accountant when it comes to inventory costing, I have been blown away with just how good the system operates. I always knew that it was a great option for winemakers to sort of keep them in compliance, which is a big concern for us a lot of the time. But the costing module is exceptional, and it follows a lot of the same thought processes that we have in our mind at Protea, which has been really, really good. But I wanted to sort of track back and just sort of speak to you, just to give you a few seconds to just explain to you, how did you come up with the concept of InnoVent in the beginning?
Yeah. Thanks, Zane, for all that. Your endorsement means everything. So thank you. Yeah, I think that the background is kind of our main differentiator. My background, we didn't create software for cost accounting upfront. And that really lends itself to why it actually works so well today, is that my background is in winemaking. So I, 2 decades ago, studied viticulture and enology at UC Davis and was a winemaker for about a decade, and primarily with small to mid-sized wineries. Got into general management and operational management, and saw a lot of the pain that existed in the industry just in terms of just tracking inventory upfront, from starting in the vineyard with fruit tracking all the way through to finished goods. So I said, okay, someone from this industry that's made wine has got to figure this out. They've got to be able to apply modern technology to enable wine producers to operate more effectively. And it doesn't actually start, like I said, with cost accounting. It doesn't even start with inventory. It really starts with compliance. We're making alcohol, and this industry is highly regulated. So first and foremost, you need traceability. How do you get traceability on everything you're making? Then we get into inventory management. Okay, let's start tracking your inventory lot by lot, eventually SKU by SKU. That's that next step, right? To be able to do that compliantly. So we check that box. And then we said, okay, now we have compliant software that's running winemaking workflows. Now let's layer in costing. That's that like beautiful component on top where we're already tracking that nuanced liquid blending and splitting from the first time you crush all the way through to finished good. It's so hard to do that in Excel. It's so hard to do that. Even if you're, Zane Stevens and you know exactly how to do cost accounting from raw material to bottle, it's still incredibly difficult and time consuming to do that without production software automating all that workflow. And this applies across the industry as a whole, from if you make, a couple hundred cases of wine to a couple million cases of wine. This is the same, that same issue exists. So that's the background on how we got to where we are today, and why the costing engine is so powerful.
Yeah, and just from the compliance standpoint, and we've had this discussion, I just find it so useful because as accountants, even if we're not using your costing module, we do need to understand the flows of the wine, not just from a compliance and completing, TTB forms at the end of the year, or, California Wine Growers form, but it does help us keep track of what is happening with your bulk wine from the portion when those grapes come in the door. And understanding where things are blended so we can move costs to the correct lots and understand what that wine really costs is really, really important. And I've spoken about it before where, you know, winemakers in general don't understand some of the decisions they make, because I've seen examples where the person's like, well, I bought like this bulk juice and I know it's really expensive and it goes into our most expensive SKU, but I used 80% of it and I just used the other 20% in our cheapest SKU. And you're like, well, that's great because it makes the wine amazing. But when I look at it at a cost standpoint, all of a sudden that pushes your cost of that bulk wine so high that you're never going to be able to make a profit on that SKU because that juice is just too expensive for what you're trying to sell. Amazing for the consumer. And if I, if I could, I would tell people just go buy that SKU because it's amazing because they're putting in the best juice into it. But that's not a very good business decision. Now, I understand if your options are to throw it away or blend it into a cheaper SKU, sure, go ahead and do that. But you do have to understand what that is doing to your business and what that effect is having on your margin, because it's going to make effects on other decisions like how much money can I spend on marketing? Where should I be selling this wine? How do I set prices? What am I willing to give up to be on that Safeway shelf? Am I giving up 1 bottle, 2 bottles, 10 bottles? What does that look like? And without the flow of information, if we're just closing eyes and hoping for the best, it is really tough. So that compliance issue, 1, keeps you out of prison. 2, just helps you make better decisions, even if we're not using your costing module, which obviously I led with is exceptional. And I do want to get into that more because you obviously shared with me that you're a lot of the brains behind that. And my interaction with winemakers is I've generally had good experiences, but understanding their cost is not a strong point for a lot of winemakers. Because they just don't understand the nuances, especially around sort of breakage, labor costs, and overheads. And that's not even getting into the weirdness around dry goods, especially if you have minimum order quantities on specific items that you use for a product. So how the heck did you learn to do inventory costing?
Great question. And you commented up front on what I think the biggest issue is that there's a lot of folks in the wine industry that are misinformed or uninformed on how all of that works. There is probably someone listening to this that said, I don't understand most of what Zane just said, right? Because they don't understand it. And that's where I get so much passion, where it's like, man, if this industry could just understand the business impact of more of this, what's the business impact of making calls to invest in certain things from grape to bottle? To your point of margins, right? If you're not allocating those costs appropriately based on the lots that are impacted by it, your margins are incorrect and you're making decisions in the sales channel that ultimately impact your cash flow. And it may have you investing in products that are not smart investments for your business. So I don't have any financial certifications. I've been completely self-taught because I'm passionate about understanding this more. And I partner with insightful, experienced partners like Protea to come in and help advise our customers, our wineries, on how to even just get started with costing. So yeah, up front, how do we build this? I inform myself on what winery cost accounting means, on the basics of what are direct costs, what are overhead costs that apply to COGS, and how do you allocate those and when do you allocate those? And then how do you reconcile that with your financial system? How do you reconcile it with most wineries listening to this are probably on QuickBooks. How do you reconcile it with QuickBooks? And that's where we bring in partners like yours to help consult with our customers, because we get a lot of questions up front on, okay, I'm so excited about cost accounting. I've purchased it. I've purchased InnoVent. Now what do I do? Help me do this. Right. And there's only so much that we actually advise winemakers and owners to do. They have to partner with their accounting resource on that, at least up front, to get the training component correct. And then you can figure out who tag teams what in terms of cost entries. But that's the starting point.
Great. You sort of spoke about misinformation, lack of information. What do you think is the biggest misconception that winemakers, winery owners have around their costing?
I think it starts with it just being very complex and unlike any other industry. So even like a lot of winery owners will come from other industries. We've even seen them bring over their cost or their accountants from their other businesses that apply their accounting practices to wine, and it's just inherently so different. I mean, there's no book on COGS best practice. There should be that I found.
Yeah.
And so I think it just starts with that. There's just not a lot of educational resourcing. I love Protea's online resource, the little videos that you do. I recommend anyone listening to this that is thinking, how do I get started with cost accounting, to watch your education. It's fantastic. So it's just getting programs like that out there. That is the first piece. And then getting winemakers starting to ask the right questions about the business. I've met with a bunch of our customers, even enologists, assistant winemakers, cellar masters, who have said to me, I'd love to be more involved in the cost side of this. Like, how much is it costing the business to do what I do and do what my colleagues do? Just that curiosity is benefiting the industry. Like, I see this next wave of winemakers that are asking the right questions. They want to understand the business financial health.
Yeah, interesting. You sort of mentioned a lot of the times through your responses to me today is just the conversations that you're having, the interactions you're having. It sounds like as much as you have a great product, that you're constantly listening to the people in the industry and trying to figure out what they actually want and need. Is that sort of true, or am I overreaching over here?
Oh, that's our bread and butter. I mean, we are first and foremost listeners. It's how we built the product up front. I mean, we partnered with a diverse set of wineries to make sure that we've dialed it into what the industry actually needs, not we think it needs. So that's helped a lot. And then with the costing feature, absolutely. I mean, my team on the customer success side don't not all of them have experience with winery accounting, and we're consulting and advising wineries all the time on how to manage their cost accounting.
Yeah, that's very interesting. And thanks for the shout out in the videos. If people do want to nerd out a little bit on wine costing, my episode last week, so that would be episode 12, I sort of spent 10 minutes just going into some of the nitty gritty. There's probably more that I should be doing and trying to distill that even further. So I am working on it. We'll eventually get there. I'll find the time to update my slides and actually record it and break it down into more simpler, understandable documentation so that people can actually learn something. And the hope is in the future that will be an add-on to that will be showing you InnoVint as well and how that works and how we can use it as accountants to actually make our job easier. And effectively, if we're using it and you're allowing us to use it as a client, our cost will come down because it will save us time during the inventory costing process because we don't have to go dig for information. And I think that is one of the big advantages of InnoVent. And you speak about the compliance and the audit trail, but from an accountant standpoint, not having to chase down what happened to that wine. You told me you bottled X and so much, but there's a 1,200 gallons missing. Like it didn't just go down the drain, did it? Like something happened to it. And having that sort of, information so we can see what happened with it. You can see your toppings, we can see your blendings. It just takes away that asking the questions that take a lot of time that can be really expensive. And I think that's just a great use of technology that, not just for us as the accountants, because like it's good for us to know because we want to cost, but if you're a winemaker, it is critical to know what you're doing because you probably want to do the same thing next year if the wine tasted good. And understanding what those ratios are when you put different additives in, all that type of information is really, really critical. And it makes such a big difference, not just in the quality of your wine because it's consistent, but it also just gets me off your back, which is probably a big benefit as well. I have one more question for you, and it might be a bit more a controversial one. And you can happily say, Zane, I'm not going there, but I'm going to ask it anyway, and you can tell me how it is. One of the big things that we see, especially when we come into a new client, and I loved tax providers and tax CPAs, But a lot of the time, our biggest pushback when trying to implement an accurate inventory costing process so that clients can understand their wine is that the tax providers say, can't do that, can't change it. They're on cash basis. We have to see it on cash basis. Do you see this as a pushback from any of your clients, and how do you deal with it?
That's a good question. And we've sort of learned organically over the years of, getting requests from CPAs versus getting requests for the platform from accountants. And they do operate in different worlds, as you know. So we always recommend GAAP-based accounting. I think that runs a better wine business. The best accountants and financial advisors will also say that if you need to run a separate set of books for tax-based accounting, you can. That's not a world that we really get into or advise on, but we recommend, at least from a COGS perspective, to follow GAAP-based accounting practice. And that's what we advise when we talk about, how to tie up COGS at the finished goods level and not continue, carrying costs with storage and things like that. We can sort of help and advise them on how you could do that outside of InnoVent, but we do try and stick strictly with GAAP-based accounting, accrual-based accounting.
Great. Love that answer. GAAP-based accounting. I like to call it accrual-ish accounting. I don't care what you do with the rest of your expenses, but as long as your COGS are on the accrual basis, I am a happy accountant, so we can make some good decisions. Ashley, if people want to learn more about InnoVent, how do they go about doing that?
You can go to our website, which is InnoVint, INNOVINT.us. And there's a lot more information on there. You can contact our team and ask any other additional questions. There's also a gateway on our website to the Punchdown. So I commented earlier about how we're really trying to educate this industry more on how to run a better business. And that very much includes the financial aspect. So we're trying to bring peers together on this online digital platform that doesn't exist today, a community. So we encourage you to join that as well. Again, it's called the Punchdown. So those are probably the best 2 ways to find us, the easiest 2 ways to find us.
Great. And I'll put both of those links to the website as well as the Punchdown in our comments so that people have access to it. I would also highly recommend, if you see a training session offered by InnoVent, they have some really great webinars with some really smart people. 100%, if you're in the wine industry, jump on that. If you're using the platform or not, just go and attend the sessions. 100% worth it. You'll learn a ton. Ashley, thank you so much for being with us this week on Protea Weekly. I truly appreciate your time. And mostly, I really, really appreciate what you've developed as a product. And I'd love to see all the developments that are coming. And I'm excited to work with you guys on our clients going into the future to make their lives a lot easier. So until next time, yeah, thanks. Until next time, be kind. Goodbye.